appearance the two of you have made together?
Yes, it is. It is right there. I don't remember you.
I'm glad you sat down and admire Bruno.
I didn't. Can you hold that?
You hit me over the head.
One, two. Well, I guess since we've got some time here, what I'd like to do is get as many questions from you all as possible. And I have a few questions. We'll kind of get things started. And maybe we can kind of, I know most of you fans know the history of both of these superstars, but at the same time, I'd kind of like them to give an introduction to how they got to this point. And I don't know if you can tell us where things began, how things began, and how you ended up and where you are now.
How did I begin as my career?
Your career, maybe a little bit about your childhood. It's an interesting story, and I have moved this
okay, I'll try to be as brief as I can. I came from Europe originally. I came to this country in 1950. I guess a lot of people, what they don't know about me, if you knew me in my heyday, days when I wrestled guys like that, I was about 275 pounds. I think, Ivan, you were about close to 300 at the time. But my beginning was a little unusual, a little different than others. You see, during the war in Europe, when we were occupied, we hit to the mountains for 14 months. I was among the lucky ones who survived because many of our people did not. And to make things even worse, to show you how lucky I've been in my life, I came down with rheumatic fever. So the war didn't kill me, but the disease almost did, because rheumatic fever is a very serious disease, and we had no doctors, no hospitals, or nothing. But because I had lost a brother and a sister, my mother had sworn that she was not going to lose another child. And I really survived because of the love and care that only a mother can give a child. And so I survived. But in 1950, when I was able to come here, which surprised a lot of people to know, that I was really literally a human skeleton. I was 14 years old and I weighed like 80, 81 pounds. But then, because I was so sickly, I started working out with, somebody introduced me to the weights, weightlifting. And then they had a program of weight training and wrestling. And as I started growing, getting stronger, my appetite grew, and I started gaining weight, then I love both sports. I combined both sports. And eventually, believe it or not, I went from this 80-pound guy to about 270, 75, to where I was competing in both Olympic lifting and powerlifting. And it was through that kind of competition, I got a little publicity, a little exposure on TV, that somebody saw me when they heard that I did both weightlifting and wrestling, that the promoter approached me about if I'd be interested in a professional career. Flew to Washington, D.C., they took me over and had me work out with a couple of guys. And basically that's how I got started. I hope that answers your question. Is that what you meant?
It does, and we're, a little bit later we're going to talk about the time when Vince McMahon Sr. called him, and Bruno hung up on Vince McMahon Sr. not once, but twice. We didn't want to talk to him, just hung right up on the phone. So we'll talk a lot about that as well. Ivan, you're one of 10 children. You grew up in Canada, did you? How did you get from there to professional wrestling?
Yes, sir. I had the unique pleasure of being able to set up here on the stage with Bruno Sammartino, the living legend. And it's quite an honor for me because he's not only the living legend, but my hero from teenage years. That's a lot of difference in our age.
You didn't act like I was your hero when I was wrestling, yeah?
No, the business is business, you know, whenever you got to wrestling, man, it got a little serious, especially when you got someone as aggressive as you were, Bruno. That's a compliment because tradition, as a man there for tradition, Bruno was the elite of conditioning as far as myself is concerned. I guess whenever I seen it on TV, coming from a family of 10 kids in the farm, a very humble upbringing, of course 7 boys and 3 girls, where I was tested very young as far as wrestling. And you'll get my book, you'll understand. I not only wrestled with my brothers and sisters type of thing, because my older sister at the time put the mop or the broom across my head whenever I walk across the floor before it was dry, and with my dirty boots or something. But I did wrestle also with the cattle because being a farm kid, a lot of chores to do in this, and I ended up, like I said, a humble upbringing. It was the idea we didn't have electricity, didn't have running water. You ended up having it very rough, no indoor toiletry. So you can imagine in the wintertime, getting up and going out to the outhouse and all this stuff, you know. So, but ended up having an opportunity at about 8 years old to go to a friend's place, a friend of mom and dad's, and they had television. We just had come out along. This is around 1950, and watching wrestling. And oh man, I fell in love with this wrestling. It was guys back then, Koloff, I believe, and I'm not sure, maybe put some guys in that, it's not in that era, but was within the next few years, Elio DiPaolo, and the great wrestlers that I really fell in love with it anyway. I just said, this is it, this is what I want to do. And drove my family crazy, wrestled all my brothers, and imagined myself wrestling when I was doing the chores. And I really, that's what it does in life, whenever you get your whole heart into something, and I guess that's what happened. I never lost that dream. Was sidetracked a little bit by different things in my life, but at 19 years old, I ended up going to a wrestling school. And I was only about 183 pounds, but in pretty good shape because of the farm work, strong and everything, and they put me on the weights, and Hamilton, Ontario, Jack Douglas, and it was in a matter of 6 months, I was 235 pounds. And, by this time, I was spending time in the wrestling school. I acquired some skills and got an opportunity here and there to go wrestle around the Toronto area. And even got to wrestle my hero, Bruno, in Pittsburgh television, about 1963. And he was just had received the belt about that time and won it. And man, whenever Bruno won the belt, I'd see him on television after that. That was my hero. That's what I wanted to be like. Brooks together. I advertised him at 290 pounds, a strong man from Brooks Italy. And really took a liking to him because of his humbleness and the way that he wrestled by kneeling in the corner and saying a prayer before his match, and just the idea that the determination in his voice and the skills in the ring. Anyway, that was the start for me. I just went out there and I said, nothing else. I'm a professional now because I paid for the gym to train me, but I found out that wasn't all there was to it. By hitting the road and getting on the road and the experiences of learning and getting the knocks, bumps on the road over the next few years. As Red McNulty, I ended up finding out that that wasn't all there was to it. The wrestling school, that was just the beginning. That was the apprenticeship. The real learning came when you got on the road and got to wrestle with all these guys that were masters of the sport, and there was so many of them, from Don Leo Jonathan to the McClary brothers. I mean, I could go on and on with the names, but got to meet some legends of the business like Frank Gotch too, other legends, and that was the start of my career.
So it's interesting because you brought up something I was going to ask you about. You wrestled Bruno. We're going to get to the 1971 match where you beat him, but you wrestled him a number of times before you came to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in 1971.
Actually, no, just at one time in the WWF Pittsburgh. The time I went down as Red McNulty, didn't even know I was going to be wrestling Bruno. I just showed up as a fill-in because another guy didn't make it, Will Johnson, and because I was a pretty chunky guy and looked good, I guess, in the weight. They chose me to put me against the champion, and that was an experience in itself. But
so we're going to get to 1971, but Bruno, before we do that, I want you, if you would, to take us through the blackballing, because you were with the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and you were in your early 20s, right? And then Buddy Rogers came in. What happened at that point, and where did you get from there to Canada and then back to New York? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you know, I had trained extremely hard. I was kind of a fanatic about my training because, as I told you, my background in Europe and what we had gone through, and that once I got healthy and I got big and I got strong and I was competing, I took great pride in everything that I did. And so when I was approached, I just won a big contest in Oklahoma City. And when I came back to Pittsburgh, they had me on television as wrestling promoter to be watching, and that's how I was approached for wrestling. Well, when I went to professional wrestling after training for a couple of months, I thought, you know, my dreams were that if I was going to be away from home and travel and all that, and give up my job, I was an apprentice carpenter at the time, was that I was going to be given the opportunity to see what I could become as a wrestler. But then, you know, I didn't know too much about it or anything like that. But I started out to where I was doing some feats of strength and I was doing different things, trying to get some publicity and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, Buddy Rogers and the crew came into the territory. In those days, we had a lot of different territories. And next thing I know, I was kind of put aside, and all of a sudden, I was used in a way that was not satisfactory to me, and I was not going to just lay down for just anybody, because I said I didn't get into this business. I got into this business to be the best that I could be and to see how far I could go, and I wasn't going to be manipulated by Rogers and his crew, who were going to be the superstars, and they were just going to keep you as a doormat for them. I rebelled against that, and that's where the blackballing came in, because we were going to teach this young punk a lesson. So when I left, gave them a proper notice that I was leaving. These guys were all, I was naive, they all knew each other, so everywhere I went, the word got out what to do with this guy. So basically, they would use me, or they would use me at a place and give me like a $20 payoff, where I could even pay for my food or my hotel. And after 6 months of this, I literally was so broke, I had to leave. So I made my way back to Pittsburgh, and I went back to work in construction. Not as an apprentice carpenter, but as a laborer. But I wouldn't give in to these people. I had received a couple calls that if I was willing to play ball, that I could come back. And I told them where to go. I said, I came into this thing to see how good I can be. And if I'm not going to give that opportunity, I'll be a ditch digger, I'll be anything, but I will not be in the wrestling business. Well, there was a show in Pittsburgh from a different organization, and I went to see them because I knew some of the guys. I would mention Edith Powell and Drew Conner, I don't know if you folks remember any of those things, but they were on the show and I went over to see them, and one of them asked me, "Are you still out of wrestling?" Because they had the word had been gone out that I was blackballed and I could wrestle anymore, you know. And actually, it was Drew Conner. He says to me, "Why don't you talk to call Frank Tommy, or let me talk to Frank Tommy?" He says, "A lot of Italians in Toronto, Canada, and Toronto's not doing well at all wrestling-wise. It's really down." He says, "You know, you might be interested in bringing you in." Well, anyway, long story is I connected with Frank Tommy, and I told him, I says, "I'll come, but I don't want to come there. Then you get a phone call from somebody in New York, and then you end up with the same story all over again." He said to me, "No, you come here." He said, and if you can help out, because things are not well, he said that you don't have to worry about phone calls from anybody. And I've always respected and I've always appreciated Frank Tommy, because he honestly gave me an opportunity. He refused to hear from anybody else. I went to Toronto, and he gave me a lot of television. I did a little self-promoting. I went to the gym, and I contacted the Italian media to come and see what I could do. And in those days, I was strong. I took 500 pounds on a bench press, and I would do like 5-6 reps with it. I did 750-pound squat. When they saw what I could do, a day or two later, the Italian newspaper the headline was, it says, "Il sono solo Italiano," which means the Italian Samson. And with this kind of publicity, then I was put on television. They had a Italian television station, Government of Colombia. And I really started getting some terrific publicity, and I became a pretty good guy in Canada. I became his headliner, and then they were asking me Winnipeg, Calgary. I started going all over the place, strictly out of Frank Connor's office, and I spent almost 2 years there. And Buddy Rogers says he had a reputation. I don't know if you ever knew that. He had a reputation for coming in the territory, shut down, and leave after you kill him. Well, New York got to be pretty bad shape, and they saw the success I was having in Canada, and to abbreviate the story, he said it was too long. Well, Vince McMahon contacted me about coming back to New York, and I told him, no, I have nothing but memories about that. And he says, well, if you come back, I'll give you a weekly guarantee. And I says, no. He says, what will it take to bring you back? I says, it takes me to go in the ring with Buddy Rogers. I said, he was a world champion. I said, you put me in the ring with him, I'll come back. I said, that won't work, because he won't wrestle. You guys hate each other. You never liked each other. You know most about that. He hated Mike Watts, and now he was just watching as much as he hated mine. So anyway, finally, after back and forth, he finally gave in to it, and he gave me the match. That's how I came back from the top of New York.
And I want to get in a couple of questions from you folks, but so Bruno, Buddy Rogers knew you wanted a title, right?
Did you know I wanted the title?
He knew you wanted a title. So why did he take the match with you? Was he tricked into taking the match with you?
He was tricked because they feared that if he was going to lose, he would never show up for the match. They told him that they had bought me for $3,500, but I was going to get beat by a string of 4 leg lock. A lot of people didn't know this. This was just because we put Swan, Vince McMahon, and Zacco toward the secrecy of this time because they wanted this stuff to leak out. Finally, when we went in the ring, that's when the referee gave us the instruction. I told Buddy, I said, Buddy, forget what you were told. Do your best because I'm going to do my best. He was stunned. Nothing happened. He didn't do anything. He was stunned by what I said. He was wondering whether it was just a double cross, what's going on, this and that. When the bell rang, I just rushed and I gave him a big body slam. I put him up on my back. I was give it up. I'm going to break your back.
So you had him up, and you said, you say that again, what did you tell him?
You mean after I put him up?
Right.
I said, Buddy, give it up or I'm going to break your back.
And he gave up.
I didn't hear him give up. The referee signaled me to put him down, put him down. When I put him down, he raised my hand as a winner. He gave up.
And when you both went back to the dressing room, did he confront you at that point? Did he?
In the old Madison Square Garden, the dressing rooms were the opposite thing. I didn't see the guy. I didn't see him at all. Talk to him or anything. We didn't talk anyway. We never talked. Like I said, you don't like me, and I don't like him.
Okay, here's a question.
Bruno, this is a situation I remember you in. I think it was at one of the pay-per-views. There was a match between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky Dragon Steamboat. And Macho Man took the announcer's bell, and I remember he jumped off the top rope and landed on Steamboat's throat. After the match, I remember they interviewed him, and Macho was bragging how proud of what he did. And I remember you jumped into, I guess, to get a little recognition for Steamboat and let Macho Man, that's kind of the wrong way to finish the move. I was wondering if you could just reminisce about that moment.
So this was, what year was that? Do you remember? Anybody remember what year that was?
I'm sorry.
He was talking about when you went back wrestling, and then you ended up wrestling with Randy Savage. How was that?
I never went back to wrestling. I don't even consider that part of my life as in wrestling because I got forced into a situation that I was very bitter and very angry about with Vince McMahon Jr. When he contacted me, because I've been retired for 4 years, when he contacted me about coming back as a color commentator, he told me that you're better than I, who had been with his father for all those years, because he wanted to keep the same tradition as his dad. It was all a bunch of baloney, and I fell for it. I believed it. So when I came back, I thought I was going to be like an advisor, besides being a color commentator, and so forth. So, but then he brought my son into the organization. And I didn't know that this guy has got an evil mind, and evil minds are always thinking evil. I didn't know what he had in mind. I didn't expect what happened. What he did was he told my kid, he says, okay, I like you to be a big star, your name's already established, blah, blah, blah. But after I came back as a color commentator, and Mr. Hulk Hogan was the world champion, Boston was already going down the toilet. They were going very poorly. Philadelphia was going down. So Vince McMahon, because I had a lot of great success in all these places, he wanted me to put the tights back on because he thought to give this class a lift. And I told him, when you're out of your mind, is around 50 years old. I says, I'm not going to put on the tights anymore. So he went to my kid and he said, it's too bad your father won't put on the tights because this is going to be great for you. He said, I'll make a tag team out of it. He says that that would be great publicity to help you become a star. When my kid came to me and he said, why don't you, I said to him, if they want to make a star out of you, they can do with you like they do with everybody else, put you on TV, they do good, all that kind of stuff. Me putting on the tights is not the way. And my kid believed that this was an end of his war, and if I put on the tights. Anyway, after putting on the tights, he did make that team with me there, but he also had me go to single matches in Boston, in Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh. And my kid, after the tag team, he would go right back as a preliminary role. And then he would become very resentful of that. And he would quit the business. And Vince McMahon knew that David had no place to go to come back. And so he knew that if he would ask me to put on the tights here or there, that I had to do it because if I didn't, then he would bring David back. So when David came back, I told him, I said, if you're going to be a wrestler, then you have to be a wrestler and put up with whatever or get out. I said, but I'm not going to allow this guy to keep doing this to me by putting on the tights and so forth. So when you talk about the nonsense with Savage and Steamboat, that was all nonsense, garbage that I was forced into by McMahon because of the situation. And that's why I finally said, that's it. I said, so I told my kid, you can get out of the business, put up with what they do, but I will not allow this guy to put me in a situation like that where I have to put on the tights at this stage of my life, which I absolutely did not believe in. And not only that, but I had very serious injuries up to this point. I had no surgeries yet, but they followed a little bit later. So when you talk about you saw me with Savage and you may see somebody else, I don't even consider that because that was the new McMahon garbage. Okay? And unfortunately, I was put in a situation where I had to be part of it, but it made me very angry. And I let him, McMahon knew very clear how I felt about him, what he was doing to the business, how much he changed it, the drugs that he brought into it. With all these guys, he wanted steroid freaks instead of the natural athletes. And so if you guys are old enough to remember, I went on the Larry King show with him one-on-one, the Bruno show, because I was trying to bring attention to it at that time because I was afraid that these drugs were going to become big killers in the business. And if you guys been following it, after the Benoit situation, they estimate that there have been about 126, 127 wrestlers that have died in the past 15, 16 years. So so I'm sorry, you asked me about that. I don't consider that as anything but garbage.
Bruno, what are the memories of the memories of your Shay Stadium match with Pedro Morales? The Shay Stadium match with Pedro Morales. How did that come about?
That was great. That was truly great for me. I always wanted to show. I had great success with this guy here. We sold out every arena I ever wrestled Ivan. And there were others too. They were great. Killer Kowalski, we factory, Donnie Jones. But what they believed, the promoters, was that in order to have this kind of success, you have to go in there with Ivan Koloff. You have to go in there with Killer Kowalski. And of course, I believe that. I mean, there's no question about it because the facts were there, what we accomplished as far as everywhere we wrestled, the enormous success we had. But I also believe that sometimes, as a diversion, that people would appreciate true scientific type of wrestlers, would go strictly and do scientific wrestling and not roughhousing or not one guy is evil, the other guy is a good guy. And Pedro Morales was the champion. I told McMahon, I said, I think that if we went in there and gave the people a wrestling match, that they would like it, they would appreciate it. He said, nah, it would never grow. Well, finally, he made the match. And the unlucky thing we had about that was that it was at Shay Stadium, and for 3 days and 3 nights, it never stopped raining. And they couldn't cancel the match to reschedule it because that's the only date they could get at Shay Stadium. So they had to announce to the people, rain or shine, where the match is going to go through. They had sold 24,000 seats in advance, like 3-4 days before the show. But then, with that kind of weather and everything else, they sold no more tickets. But still, we went in there with 24,000 people. We wrestled for 1 hour and 18 minutes. It was not a punch thrown. It was nothing. It was strictly. And I think the people truly appreciated it. Now, you can't have matches like that on a regular basis, but I wanted to prove a point that once in a while there was a great diversion and promoters should have looked at and give the people once in a while. And so that's what that was all about.
I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but one of the things I think we all want to hear about is January 18th, 1971. So what happened on that day? What happened on that day? After a near historic 8-year run as the World Light Wrestling Federation champion, Koloff beat Bruno Sammartino in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3, right? Can you talk about what led up to that item? And especially what I want to know is, what happened the minute that you got your hand raised and what the crowd was like?
Wow, what an honor it was to be able to not only wrestle Bruno, but just the idea of the intensity and how much the people love Bruno when into not only Madison Square Garden, but any arena, any place, whether it was St. Louis to Boston, Washington, D.C., but it was just the intensity of the people in the crowd watching their hero. And man, for me, to have wrestled Bruno was quite an honor, but I had wrestled him the year before that for about 8 to 10 months. And I think it was all around 3 or 4 times in different arenas in the northeastern part of the United States. And never winning the belt. In a couple of victories when my hand was raised, but on technicality, never getting the belt. And just tickled to death, just pleased to be able to wrestle with against Bruno, and in the area that was so looked at as being wrestling period, you know, like Madison Square Garden wrestling. People looked at, if you talk about wrestling, it was Madison Square Garden, it was WWF, and it was Bruno Sammartino. He was such a legend up there. But just to have wrestled him really made my career. I came right from Montreal, being recognized there as I Koloff for a couple of years, holding the King belt, and having the Capitol battle, and Tony Altamar, the Sicilian, taking a liking to me and my skills, and related to New York, and pretty soon I was down there in New York, and like I say, wrestled Bruno, not winning the belt, leaving, very content with the fact that, man, that was a feather in my hat, just to be able to have that opportunity to wrestle Bruno. Went to Australia, 10-week tour, wrestled over there, and had a great time, and wrestled some great competition, and stopped in Fiji, stopped in Hawaii, and was wrestling there, taking time, a rest period. At that time, they had a territory there in Hawaii where you wrestled about 3 times a week, and the rest of the time lay at the beach and worked out every day. And I took advantage of that and had a good rest, and got a call to return to New York to wrestle Bruno with his match. And now, of course, I was excited to hear that I had a chance to wrestle Bruno again, and under the circumstances, I really figured what's going on here, you know, what's this guy's sick or something. And that's what I was more or less told that take place. They said, don't worry about all the technicalities of it, just come on up there. And I said, this is through someone else, like, giving me the message. And I said, well, I need to talk directly to Vince to make sure that this is something that is sincere. And so I got through to him, and he said, yes, we can come back, and we'll talk more about what we need from you when we get here. But I believe that I'll make it worth your while to come back. And so don't worry about that part of it. Because, hey, you got to realize I moved down, I moved my family out of that area, and my stuff that I had with me, and that was going to be it. So here I am moving back, and you want to make sure when you move from area to area that it was going to be something worthwhile. So here I moved back into the area for the chance to get to wrestle Bruno, to find out that, and I can understand it. Bruno had wrestled 7.5, 8 years by that time. He's champion, very competitive, and what people don't realize, possibly, is that the matches that were held in the Northeast, not like down here in the National Wrestling Alliance, was in rings up there that were like 24 foot, I believe, and there's a boxing ring with 4 ropes, and they were concrete. I mean, very hard match, and I guess that was because the boxers, or the boxers, they can't have anything with too much give or they tire their legs out. So, but for wrestling, usually they have the rings constructed in a way that you can bounce a little bit, so you can hit the ropes, you get some leverage, and more or less like a trampoline type of thing. And Bruno, I believe, with that many years, knowing what those rings were like myself, and being there for a spell, I sympathize with the fact that he had been hurting, because I can remember taking back drops up there, and slams and suplexes, and when you landed, you felt that in your body go right through you. So the injury Bruno must have sustained up to that point, where he thought that he was probably due for a rest for sure. And I think probably Vince knew that and was going by those lines where he was there's a chance maybe to maybe get another champion, or I don't know what he was thinking really about those lines. Probably business-wise, Vince was thinking of getting the belt off of Bruno, and I didn't know all the internal works that Bruno did, but I ended up just going along with it and was glad about it, and ended up going back to New York and seeing the results of it, the sellout, Madison Square Garden. First I wrestled around about 3 weeks, I believe, in the area against other people, and winning my matches, and then I was wrestling. I was ready to go. I was around 300 pounds, and in pretty good shape, and very strong. And I just ended up doing real well with different competition, and then built up for this match with Bruno, and coming out there that night, what a thrill it was. You must have heard the story by now, but just the idea of, you can imagine, a sellout crowd, and the intensity of these people for Bruno, knowing that they had wrestled me many times before, but still they wanted to see this match. And I'm sure Bruno was a favorite type of thing, but they ended up, I think there was a part in there, sometime around the road when we wrestled, that you went to the hospital with torn muscles in your stomach, and I didn't even know about it. Matter of fact, I was told about it later. Where, I guess the intensity of coming off the top, Bruno tensing up, when you're 300 pounds, you can only control your weight so much, but I don't know if it happened that night, but I know it did happen, and so that's the type of things that happen whenever you're in a situation and the people are looking for great competition. You're all out there, and tried my best and ended up coming off the top rope, I remember.
You did a knee drop right off the top.
He dropped off the top rope.
In his throat, in his chest,
It was actually the chest, yeah. And sometimes you went for the throat type of thing, but usually tried to hit the person, knock the wind out of it in the lung area, and it was like 1, 2, 3, got up and hand raised and walking around, walking over to the referee, and he raised my hand, if I can remember right, and I was saying, "Where's the belt? Where's the belt?" Like, you know, he was saying, "Never mind, never mind." I said, "What do you mean, never mind?" Like, you know, I figured it's going to be something happen here. They're going to say continue the match, but they're saying no, just. And the people were so quiet. You could hear a pin drop. And I was an eerie feeling, like, you know, I've been in situations before, and around Montreal, and now of course a lot of riots and all this stuff, where the ring was filled up with chairs and everything thrown at me. That I said, I felt that feeling that it was going to be a riot type of thing. And I found out later that it was just that the people couldn't believe the fact that 1, 2, 3, Bruno had lost the match, and that's why the quiet was there. And the reason why they didn't want to give me the belt, they figured it was going to be a riot. And the referee told me, go back to the dressing room. Went back to the dressing room, that's when they gave me the belt.
If I could just get away, if I could interrupt just one thing, because I was saying something about what he said about that night. It was really spooky. First of all, when Ivan says that when we wrestled that night, he was surprised, or I forget his exact word, about the sellout. The fact is, we sold out everywhere we wrestled him. Whenever I wrestled him, we would sell out because people always knew, regardless who was going to win the match, they knew that what kind of a match they were going to see. Not bragging, but when he was 300 pounds, I was 275. I recently saw a match that we had, and I'm not sure where. Chris, you know,
on YouTube.
We were literally moving like two guys that weighed 150 pounds. I mean, I was catching him with some phenomenal arm drags really quick, and then he'd catch me from the ropes, picking up over his head, throwing me clear across the ring, and I would slam him. I mean, we were really, really moving like crazy. And it was this kind of action that we always gave. Whenever that match was made, people flocked to come. But when that night in Madison Square Garden, I'll tell you, yes, he came down with that big knee drop. I mean, he came down a little on the hard side, and when I heard it was, yeah. And it was so quiet, I thought that I took a blow that somehow affected my ears. Because naturally, in my mind, I thought there would be some boos because he beat me. Well, what happened was that Arnold Skolin, who came into the ring, and he came over to me, and he said, "Are you all right?" And I heard it perfect and clear. And I thought, oh, gee, there's 20,000 people. How could it be so quiet? So there was nothing wrong with me in my ears because I heard Arnold say to me, "Are you all right?" So then what really made me feel bad that night, I was almost relieved about the title because I was hurt. I mean, I had been going ridiculous for 8 years. So, but that relief went into sadness because as I walked out of the ring and making my way to the dressing room, a lot of the people, not exaggerating, they were literally crying and telling me, "Bruno will always love you, you'll always be the best." And I was really so deeply touched by that. By the time I got to the dressing room, I felt so bad. I felt so sad and bad because I thought, my God, I don't know if I felt that strong about this, you know, and I really let him down. But it was eerie almost because all my years in wrestling, never did I experience anything with 20,000 people. You could have heard a pin drop that night, which is so unusual because I thought this guy, his life was going to be maybe in danger or he was going to have to make one heck of a getaway to get out of it. And instead, it was so opposite. Nobody expected to happen, you know, the way it happened. I just wanted to add that from my perspective.
And Ivan, when did you get the belt? That night, did you actually wear the belt or did you go back to the dressing room? What happened?
Yes, matter of fact, as soon as I got back into the hallway, going to the dressing room, they handed me the belt. And matter of fact, there's some pictures taken right there in the hall with the captain of the banner holding the belt. Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people, what they don't realize is the intensity that we had to wrestle at, because when you get somebody in such great shape, as the Bruno was talking about, and I mean, this man is not telling about, he's a humble man, but I'd get there ahead of time, week after week, whether it was TV taping or what, Bruno would be running around the arena, for an hour. Here I got a wrestling style. Doing laps without the arena before the match. That was something to your psychology. You were saying, man, I'm going to get back there and do some push-ups.
Don't let him kid you. We had a lot of long matches. He was there toe-to-toe all the way. I was always a good
I was
job.
fighting for my life.
Okay, your question here in front.
Bruno, first of all, I wanted to say congratulations on your position with Vince McMahon and the stand.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, because everybody's giving in to the mighty dollar, except for Sammartino, and I admire you for. Bruno, can you talk a little bit about the night at Madison Square Garden with Stan Hansen, where your neck was broken? A little bit of a timeline, what happened, and being taken to the hospital, and the prognosis within that day.
This was your second reign as champion, right? You were champion?
Gosh, was it?
What year was that?
Yes,
Second
it was.
time.
Yes, it was. Well, what happened, this Stan Hansen, a young fellow, I think he was only about, if I'm not mistaken, he was around 24, 25 years old. The mistake sometimes that I made was that I had been in Madison Square Garden every month for so many years that the garden, to me, it was great. I loved it. The fans were always unbelievable, but it was just a place that I wrestled on a regular basis. You forget that to some young guy who's never wrestled there, like I just said a while ago, there's one arena. We've wrestled around the world. We've been in many countries. And I guarantee they may have not known the Pittsburgh Civic Arena or Baltimore Civic Center, but no matter where you go on this planet, everybody knows Madison Square Garden. So Madison Square Garden made an impact on anybody, And so I think what happened that night, I'm sure, Stan Hansen's a big fellow. He's about, 6'4", 300 and some pounds. And what happened was we were going at a pretty good action and sweating because it was hot. And everybody says, Larry, that's not what broke my neck. What happened was that as I was shooting tackles, he went to body slam me. And as he went to pick me up, somehow, I don't know if he lost control of me, hold me, whatever, but he drove me straight down head first. And that's how I broke my neck. I went straight down on my head.
And if you watch the match, and you can watch that match on YouTube, what memories do you have of that match after you broke your neck?
Just about zero. I was in the hospital, and I remember they were poking me on the side, and they kept asking me if I felt this, and I couldn't feel nothing. And then the fear started coming in because I felt some paralysis. But in time, I was lucky because I broke the 67 cervical vertebrae, and went to this hospital. They were able to, they were pressing against the cord, but they didn't cut the cord. Just the pressing against it was what gave me this numbness, but it didn't cut, so they were able to remove it from there. And then eventually I got my feeling back, whatever. And after spending about a month and a half in the hospital, everything came back to where I came out and I started training again, came back in the ring.
Were you angry with Hansen about that?
No, I'm not. Listen, I've been hurt not a lot of times in the ring, and there are guys who got hurt with me too in the ring. I never intentionally would go in the ring and try to hurt anybody, and I like to believe the same about it. The competitors, you go in there and you want to do the best. People bought tickets to come see, and you owe them everything you had as far as what you were doing there. But you have to be, you have to understand people enough to know that it was a dangerous business. Like Ivan says, those damn rings were like concrete. And when all we wore was a pair of tights and a pair of boots. A lot of people don't realize it. Talk about how the wrestling fake this and that. There's nothing fake about taking the human body and giving him a back body drop. One time I picked up this guy in Pittsburgh, he was shooting tackles. I picked him up. We were going to such a pace. I threw him over the top rope. He went about 3-4 rows into the audience. And they had those steel chairs. I didn't get killed. I don't know. But the way we abused our bodies, it was incredible. That's why you see a lot of us guys. Hey, I've had 3 very, very major back surgeries. I've had hip replacement. I've had knee surgeries, broken neck. And that's why my weight, I've worked so hard to get down from 270 down to 215, 220, because to take pressure off the knees and the back and whatever. And today, thank God, I mean, I work out every day. I train 6 days a week. But we pounded our bodies, we punished our bodies, and you can see a lot of the old guys, like, and I'm sorry to say he's in bad shape right now, but Koloff was a guy, 6'6". I saw him in Boston last year. I was taller than he was, because he was so bent up and he was so twisted with his knees. And he said, don't be with Jonathan, a giant of a man. I mentioned him earlier. This guy was 6'6", 6'7", 330 pounds, and he was like a captain at the ring. He was just unbelievable. Now he walks around with a walker. People have no idea what a tough business this was. Today, I saw one of the rings when I was with color commentating. In fact, I told somebody, I said, if I was starting my career with these kind of rings, I could be a champion until I was 80 years old.
So Ivan, you win the belt for Bruno, and that's a real high point for you. But 3 weeks later, a low point. How did you process that as an athlete, being at the top and then losing the title? How did that make you feel emotionally and professionally?
Well, that part of it wasn't near as bad as the idea that I thought I had an agreement with the Vince McMahon Sr. at the time that I was to be there for a certain period of time after and be in that slot type of thing, you may say, or opportunity to be the main event or in the main event category, you know, type of thing. And whenever you're told that no, a couple months and leave, you don't want to be put in that situation, because what you realize then at that point that you're going to be pushed out of the card. Eventually, you're not going to be featured. Not just good business for a professional wrestler to allow himself to do that. So I ended up saying no to them, and just saying, actually, before it all happened, they're coming to me trying to hint about this, and I just said no after the fact that I had lost the belt, and I was just going to leave and possibly come back at another time. You know, I got a chance for a rematch.
So it was a disappointment. You thought you were going to be champion longer than that.
You know what? It's not my question, but it needs to be honest here. That was one of the all-time mistakes by Vince McMahon Sr. When this guy was a young man, when we were all young at that time, he was like a bull. People believed in this guy. I mean, that's why we packed the arenas all the time, because not only, like I said, like a bull, but we were both big then. He was bigger. I was 275, he was 300. And like I said, the kind of action. You don't find too many guys that were 300 pounds that could move like I did. If McMahon had used good judgment, this guy here should have been champion for a good while. And because he could have gone to places like I used to go to Japan. In Japan, they always received me as the world champion. In Australia, I toured South America a number of times, always as the world champion. He could have done that because he had credibility. People believed him. All they had to do was look at him, and they believed him. And especially that the way his actions were in the ring. So to me, Vince took a giant step backwards when he allowed that to happen. I'm nothing against who came into his place, and I'm not saying that at all, because maybe a year later, 2 years later, might have been a different story. But at that time, I always felt it was I resented it. I thought it was a bad mistake.
I was going to bring this up, but you brought up the Hall of Heroes. Was that disappointment and other things what led to your alcohol and drug abuse? Was that tied? Were you upset? How did that come about?
No, I couldn't blame it on that. I think that's just a choice that we all have as far as whether you drink too much, or drink at all, or the drugs. I think the drugs are part of it. Drinking to me was from, I was educated as a kid. You worked hard, you worked like a man, you ended up, when the opportunity came around, family, friends came to the house, and we had a party maybe once a year, twice a year or something, and you're 10, 12 years old, if you're out in the field, milking cows in the morning and at night, doing the chores and stuff, you're able to have a couple drinks, and you're treated like a man, you know, because we're big kids too, and consequently that, I don't agree with it, but that thinking type of thing, I guess stayed there was socially acceptable to have a few drinks, and as I wrestled, drinking of course was part of each night, you end up having a couple drinks, a few drinks, there's the whole saying, like if it was a 100-mile trip, 6-pack, 200 miles, it'd be 12-pack, and so on. We had a lot of long trips, so drinking, and if that didn't get done, like, you know, but you'd get up next day, you'd go to the gym, and you'd sweat it out, and right back at it, and you'd wrestle again. So people didn't realize that, maybe don't realize, 7 days a week you're wrestling, traveling by car, long trips sometimes, 300, 400 miles there. You're like you become like a zombie, a puppet, you might say, or whatever, to the business in a sense. And you don't even realize it. You become entranced in that. That's your job. You're supposed to be able to do this. And you can't do it, so you need somebody else to do it. So you find a way to do it. So you think by going to the alcohol is going to get it done. It's just the lie the enemy uses, of course, to kill, steal, and destroy. But it's realizing this now. But back then it was the idea that, well, hey, everybody else is doing fun. You're man thereabouts. Have a few drinks, you know, so you go have a few drinks, and then pretty soon injuries happen. 1973, I got quite a serious injury in Minnesota, a ruptured disc in the back. They were suggesting surgery, and we wanted to go that route, and I'm glad I didn't, because to this day I haven't had it operated on, so I'm still walking around. But they wanted to do surgery on me, and I said no. Suffered for a year or two there with ambulatory traction, but they put me on pain medicine and of course muscle relaxers, sleeping pills, and that might have been the worst route to go after all, because it introduced me to the drugs type of thing. And I pretty well got away from that until later on in the 70s, and then went back to it later on. I think late 70s, marijuana was a big thing, and then, of course, after that, cocaine was the drug of choice, I suppose. And I fell into that trap too, must admit it, but it wasn't because of the disappointments in the wrestling. I think if it was to blame it on wrestling, it'd be the intensity of wrestling, what is called upon you to have to do in wrestling. You know, that doesn't mean you still have to do it, but if you feel that you're not getting the strength from other means, then you go to that route, and the alcohol wasn't getting done, so I go to the marijuana, whatever, and add another thing, and add another thing. Pretty soon you're not only an alcoholic, but you're a drug addict. And you're still functioning, you're still doing this stuff. I look at now some of the videos that I did in the 80s and that, and man, talk about, no wonder they called me like a devil whenever I got into fights and bars or the airplanes and stuff. Man, I was possessed really because of this alcohol.
So it was alcohol, marijuana, cocaine. Were you ever high in the ring? Did you ever wrestle impaired?
And you couldn't not be, because you never really got off of it. You ended up 7 days a week from the time that you got up, even if you sobered up enough in the morning and the drugs maybe started coming out of your system. They don't come out of your system that fast. So you're in the ring doing that. I remember wrestling The Rock's dad, Rocky Johnson, in one of those towns up in '83 in New York. and going into the ring, and I remember going under the rope. Nobody noticed there was anything wrong, but I did. When I went through the ropes and came up, the whole building was going round and round. And cleared my head. Up to 20 minutes later in the match, I'm coming out the top rope, and I get to move then when Walter Von Erich introduced the move. Remember, knee in the back of the neck, where he grinded down. I was copying his move, and ended up, the counter to that was to grab my wrist and pull me off before I pushed off. And Rocky went to do that to me, and a slip type of thing, right on the ropes. The ropes went up the little slippery, I guess, and landed sort of on my head. I hadn't had made where I got turned, but I remember going unconscious, but realizing that same pain that Bruno talked about the idea, oh man, I'm going paralyzed, because you feel a shock right through your body, electricity, like that thing, no feeling. And then it's, oh man, the relief comes back, and after about 3 or 4 minutes of just laying there, and then finishing the match. Incredible. I don't know if the body is, that would make one jump, I guess, but I was abusing myself real bad. And I'm proud of that fact, but that's why a lot of guys that Bruno just mentioned ended up passing away in the business because of the intensity. And there was a case up there about the idea of the doctor being charged with drugs. I think he spent some time in jail. And I should have been on the stand testifying because it was in the dressing room, boxes and boxes and boxes. That still doesn't mean that you got to get it. You have to buy it. You know, it's available on the street today. Doesn't mean that you have to buy it. It's the idea of, you know, that God says in the Bible, right? You know, life and death is in your words. Same thing with your mind. You're supposed to take captive of every thought. If the thoughts are, hey, I need this as a crutch to be able to function in this business, then I'm going to fall prey to that lie. And that's what I was doing back then. I was going down the wrong path, and it's a wonder of a life today. I don't mean once, twice, a few times, dangerous pictures. I'm talking about thousands of times of waking up the next morning and realizing I not only drove last night, but I had a car full of guys that I could kill somebody else on the road. So I had a number of guardian angels watching over me. So this is what I'm just talking about, a battle here, a physical battle of wrestling. You know, whatever you may think of wrestling, but this is a spiritual battle too. Well, life is a spiritual battle, and no matter what business you're in, but in professional wrestling, like any entertainment, or any sports field, high-profile business, the temptations are even more so. And I think a lot of guys fell prey to that. And sometimes us guys are still here. Bruno's a great example of a person that never went that route, you know? So it's possible to do that, to be strong enough to do that. And hey, no wonder he's looked at as being a hero to so many people. I should have looked at him as a role model back then and been strong enough to stay away from it. But I can understand why a lot of guys today are paying the price because of their lifestyle during those times. But yeah, I was many times after that period of time getting in the ring under the influence of this or that and still able to function, but not really to the best of my ability. And I'm ashamed of that part of it.
Title defense was against Mario Milano. Were you aware at the time that Mario Milano was over as a huge babyface in Australia, working for Jim Barnett? Did you know that, or was it just a match with a guy? And also, Bruno, were you aware of who Mario Milano was?
Mario Milano, how big he was in Australia.
At that time, I didn't realize that he I was told that when I got to wrestling in New York, during this period of time, and I should have known that because I just came back from Australia. And man, I love your country, by the way, Australia. What would a treat to be able to go over there and live right on Bondi Beach and all that. That's quite an experience. But Mario, I knew, was a great athlete and in great shape. And I didn't know that he was regarded as a great wrestler in Australia, but I could see why he would be because of getting to wrestle him in New York and realizing his skill in there, wrestling him in Philadelphia. That's quite a story in itself, it being filmed and everything, and me not realizing the works of the office that was going on at that time. And that happened to a number of guys. That was kind of an insurance policy that the office had of keeping guys under the thumb, I suppose, by getting a person in a situation that looked like a submission, like a domino stretch, and reacting to the domino stretch, and then ringing the bell and raising Mario Milano's hand, and then saying, "Oh, mistake, continue the match," having it on film where you actually lost the match. That's some of the tricks that promoters, to play to be able to try to control the champion or the situation, whether you're champion or not, to make you try to do what they want you to do. And that was more and more as the years went by, what the promotion tried to do. We're going back to Mario Milano, what a talent. Bruno probably knows it better than I did. Did you know?
There's no question. I knew Mario, of course. I knew Mario very well. Mario was a very, very talented guy. He was an impressive-looking athlete, really good-looking guy. But in Australia, he was a good card. But Dominic DeNucci was a bigger card. Spiros Arion was a big card. There wasn't a one guy that shined in Australia because wrestling, when American wrestlers were on there, a lot of guys really shined and did really great. DeNucci stayed there a year and a half. Strictly was a headliner. Spiros Arion came from Greece, and he was strictly a headliner for a long time. And Mario Milano lived there. He was in the mix a lot. But in all honesty, in all fairness to the others, I don't think one was bigger than the other. It's not like one guy was head and shoulders above everybody. It wasn't that way.
Bruno, earlier you were fairly critical of Vince McMahon, and the knock on you in recent years, the past 10 or 15 years, has been that this is a bitter old guy. He's angry because the business has changed. He wants to get back into the WWE, and he's just bitter and stews in his own juices. What's your reaction to that?
I always find that amazing. There are a few people that said, yeah, Bruno won't go to the Hall of Fame because he's a bitter guy. Some people are saying this, I haven't seen in 25, 30 years. How do these people know about my life, what I think, what I feel? It just puzzles the heck out of me. I've said this, and I say it 100 times. I wish that most people in my age group that were in this business were as happy as I am. I'm an extremely happy guy. Today, after all these surgeries and everything, I train 6 days a week. I'm in good shape. I go back to the old country once a year where I came from, the wife and I. I have 4 beautiful grandchildren that I spend a lot of time with. My 2 sons that live in Pittsburgh. We're very, very close. Life is great. What people don't understand, those who are critical of me about this Hall of Fame, they don't understand that this is America, the greatest country in the world, and we're all free to do as we choose. To those of you who love what Vince McMahon did to wrestling, it's your right. You enjoy it. But don't criticize me for hating it, because I have the same right as anybody else. I hate what he's done to wrestling. He brought in nudity, vulgarity, profanity. It's a disgrace that they don't respect. And shame on a lot of the parents. I've seen when I was doing commentating, they had mothers and fathers with 7, 8-year-old kids exposed to this kind of garbage. What are they telling these kids? Here's Vince McMahon, kiss my butt club, drops his pants for somebody to kiss his butt. On TV, they put that white cloud, but in the audience, people see it loud and clear. So my thing to you is, I despise the game that I loved for all those years. I'm embarrassed by it today. Okay, really am. And so when they say, why won't you go to the Hall of Fame? How can I be so critical as I feel about this and then accept this Hall of Fame? I'd have to be the biggest hypocrite in the world. And I will not do that. And the other thing is, what Hall of Fame? Well, if any of you folks want to go to the Wrestling Hall of Fame, tell me, where do you go? Where would you go? You go to Movie Star? Where would you go? Where is it? I'll tell you what, folks. I've always said this isn't the prettiest face you'll ever see, but when I look in the mirror, I'm not ashamed by it. I stick by my guns, I stick by my
How about you, Ivan? Are you bitter? Are you angry? Does it not play a role in your life? What do you think about it?
No, I'm not bitter about it. I think that's too hard to, maybe not the right word, I guess, disappointed. The idea of frustrated, maybe it's something to do, better word to explain it. The idea of what can you do about it other than not turn it on, you know, and making a stand like Bruno says, is not going to the Hall of Fame. Tell you, if they call me to go there, I'm going to tell them that if they'll give me a chance to say something, then I believe that words speak louder than, you know, that's why I like to show my action, is by speaking it, you know, type of thing. Because I can't go in there now and go show that they've already seen how it should be done, you know, the old way of doing it. And that what they're doing today is just a new product altogether, and it's an X-rated product. I mean, if you want to see pornography, you just go down to the shop, and you order it on TV or something like, you know, and pay for it, you know, type of thing. But I don't have it in my house, and I don't agree with it. But if, as far as what Vince is doing with all the junk, I agree with Bruno, the nudity and all that is a bad example. And really, I can't emphasize it enough. We really need to take control of that fact of what we allow in our homes. And if that comes across those waves, the TV waves, that just don't have it on there. Get rid of the cable yet. We won't allow it in our home. And that's the reason, because the kids come over and they cut the TV on. And before you know it, they're doing all this stuff. What kind of example? Tell the kids not to do something, and then you turn on to have it in your house. It's crazy. I mean, that's just my opinion. You know, you can't stop you from doing whatever you want to do, but I really believe that you got to make a little bit of a harder stand so I can understand and appreciate where Bruno's coming from as far as the Hall of Fame and that. I would just handle it a little bit different myself personally. If I could get a chance to get up there and say something, you know, to allow me to, and not be ignorant about it, to call Vince down or anything like that, to call names or anything like that. But it's just the idea of speaking maybe a positive side for the idea of the Lord, you know. And to me, that's where I just feel so blessed to be here today, that the grace of God allows me to be here for the idea of all the junk that I did allowed in my life to happen. When stuff like this is happening to our business, no wonder we get angry as, being the older wrestlers that wrestled back in the time when wrestling was so intense, and we wrestled on hard rings. We wrestled for 90 minutes. I've had 90-minute matches, 60-minute matches, where each night after night, we got in there and wrestled. Yeah, maybe still under drugs and everything, but man, you're going in there with a dislocated shoulder, torn cartilage, sprained ankle, cracked rib, always something wrong with you, and you still have to get in there and perform. Those fans out there paying their money to fill that seat. It's the idea that they're expecting their money's worth. And if you don't perform, if you don't get out there and get it done, they don't want to hear that you're hurt or can't get it done.
I mean, didn't Vince find the Lord? I mean, in a ring, didn't he wrestle him or something? Or wasn't he his tag team partner? You didn't see that part, did you? Did you see that? Yeah. Did you see that? When was that? He wrestled God, didn't he?
I heard something about that blasphemy. I mean, it's just the idea that just saying something that him implicating that he's going, or suggesting he's going into a church and he's challenging God. It's a wonder he is not struck dead. My prayer, obviously, is, God says you're supposed to, you love your enemy. It's the idea that you're supposed to hate what they're doing, but not hate the sinner. You're supposed to love the sinner. I pray that Vince would be touched by the grace of God, that he would change his thinking, change his mind. What a platform to reach people, that if he would just allow that on his TV show.
No question.
Bruno, what was your first impressions of Andre the Giant? Do you have any backstage stories about it?
The first time I was touring Australia in 1966 or 7. I made a number of tours over there, so I'm not sure which one it was. But on my way from there, I had a couple of bouts in New Zealand, and I met this guy who was 7 feet tall, whatever he was, and believe it or not, he was only about 280 pounds, and he was really young. I don't know if he was maybe 20 years old. I'm not sure of his age. And I was introduced to him. I just saw him. I was amazed. I thought he wasn't all that, but he looked almost thin, except he was very big bone, big hands, big feet. And then about 5 years went by or something like that. I'm wrestling in Montreal, and I see this like 450, 500 pound guy walk in, and he came over and he said hello, and I didn't know that I knew him. And he reminded me of where we met. And I couldn't believe it that this was the same guy, because, he had grown, like 200 pounds in those days. What was in my impression? I got along real well with Andre. I liked Andre. Times excuse me, I felt sorry for him. A lot of people say he could get moody. Well, it was understandable too. Too often people made him feel like he was some kind of a freak, the way they would act with him and treat him. And so then he could get moody and maybe even a little nasty. But my personal experience was with Andre. I consider him a friend. We got along real well, and I have no bad memories of him at all. But I just felt very bad for him that he had a terrible disease. I couldn't even say the name of it, what they call it. But you just keep growing and growing. And the life expectancy for that disease I've read, and I've seen doctor reports on, it's like 46, 47 years, and that's exactly how long Andre lived. So, but for me, he was a lucky guy. I liked him.
Bruno, I had heard that you wanted to wrestle Andre, but that Vince McMahon Sr. wouldn't allow you to have a match with him.
Yeah, I suggested to Vince that we wrestled and put the match in Yankee Stadium someplace, because I really believed that we could have sold the place out. But at the time, Vince felt that Andre was what we call in the business, and if I'm wrong on this, please correct me, I would call it a novelty type of guy. He was not the type of guy that you kept into the same area on a continuous basis, because he was the kind of guy who was such a giant. But after you went and saw him once or twice or 3 times in the same places, you've seen him. So Vince McMahon had the job of booking him in different territories. He would contact different promotions. Could use Andre for 2 weeks. Could use Andre for another week. And often, what happened was that the other promotions, no, he was just here 3 months ago. No, he was here 4 months ago. And Vince had to keep him busy, and he didn't want to keep him around the same area because he knew he would lose his value. So then I came up with the idea. I said, well, let's generate some interest. I said, let's make a match between he and I in the Yankee Stadium or someplace, and I think that would create a lot of interest. He absolutely wouldn't hear of it because he felt that you know, I was, at the time, I was his top gun, and he didn't want anything to take away from that. And he felt that if Andre didn't look good, or the match ended in a way that was not acceptable to the people, that they would completely take away from that. He saw it as a no-win situation. I didn't agree with that, but he was the boss, so he said it went. But I am very sorry that that never happened, because I really, really would have liked that. But you can always have what you get what you want.
Ivan, did you ever wrestle Andre?
Yes, I had the privilege of about 5 different times wrestling against Andre. I can remember one time in St. Louis, they put 3 of us against Andre. It was a handicap match where we had to tag before we came in. And we did a thing out there where, just to see what Andre would do, we all jumped in the ring at one time and jumped on him. And we seen him pretty quick. He was indeed a strong man, and he just was off. I mean, when you get those big old hands flying at his size, incredible. He was a gentle guy. I knew one thing. The first time I wrestled Andre, I knew this. Now I was going to make friends with him, because man, I had to get in the ring with him again. I wanted to make sure he liked me. But because the first time I wrestled him, you know, I didn't know I was 300 pounds, and they put me against him, so I was going to try to do some stuff to him. I went behind, I had this move where I went behind, real quick, fall down, and try to crouch the guy, take him down off his feet, you know, to get him down. And he's back there one time. He was Madison Square Garden. He got really upset with me, but I went to do it to Andre, and it didn't work. He planted those big old feet down, and he reached down and got me, put me in the corner, and started leaning on me. I thought my ribs were going to cave in. Leaned on me. He was about 420 or 30 pounds by this time, and definitely a giant, man. He ended up, I know in Montreal, they had me come back in there, not the Grand Prix type of wrestling only, but I think it was Delusion that brought me back in to Montreal to wrestle against Andre after I had left there. And I guess it must have been the late 70s or something. I can't remember the date exactly, but they had to come in, they did a TV thing where they said to me, while Andre was being interviewed, to pick a chair up and hit him over the head. I said, does Andre know about this? He said, no, but it's all right. But I did what they told me. I picked up this chair and went up there. He was sort of, couldn't see me on the side of everything. I came up to the last second turn, boom, I hit him over the head. He went right over the table, and broke the table, and came up, blood all over the place, and man, what's going on? But ended up doing real good at the Coliseum. So Andre was still a businessman. I mean, it was the type of thing that he knew that him against me, if he didn't do something that made me look good on camera before that, then probably it wouldn't do that good. But he was a gentle giant. He ended up cooperating with me in that case. I really liked Andre for that reason, that he not only didn't kill me in the ring, but don't get me wrong, he didn't mess with him in the ring, because I heard some stories about guys messing with him in the ring, and big guys too. And Andre ended up having one guy crying one night, I understand, in the ring, please. So, I'm not going to say who it was.
It brings me to the next question that a lot of people ask professional wrestlers. Was there ever a time where you were in the middle of the ring and you knew what was supposed to happen, and your opponent did something that, you know, maybe changed things around, that didn't like the way that things were going? Just to use an inside term, I guess we're asking, were you involved in any shoots?
Yeah, I felt like it if it wasn't a shoot. I never considered myself to say a shoot, like what that means actually is the idea that you're not cooperating at all in the ring. You're going to go there with the intention of beating the guy. That's what it is. It's for real type of thing. Yeah, many times I've felt like that in the ring against my opponent. I look back at it there now, and I guess what they're doing is they were just so tough and such great shape that they're just playing with me, and I'm just glad that I stayed in the business long enough to find out that I was smart enough that I know what the rest is about today. I think I am smart enough anyway that to what the score is about wrestling. But you know, at times I was in there with guys, and I'll mention a couple names because they're in great shape, and Bruno probably appreciate that. Some of you folks, Edward Caponte for one in Montreal. The guy was in great shape. I mean, I just ended up going out there, and I had to fight for everything in the ring to get it down, get it, the take over on it, you might say, in the ring. Billy Robinson was another one. I just have to knock these guys out. I have respect for them. Great shape, and they knew how to, some of them do it. Billy Robinson was what we call a shooter type of thing from England. He was a hooker. He could hurt you. Being in there with guys like Vern Gagne, where you locked up with him, and I don't realize it, but you go to the referees all slap in the ear on this side or on this side. Didn't know which was coming. Busted both my eardrums at different occasions wrestling. I mean, when you get in matches with guys that, man, you start, saying, well, what is this guy? Is he a professional, or is he hasn't been trained, or what? You start realizing that, man, maybe I'm in a bad situation. I'm going to have to fight for my life. So without mentioning a lot of names, that's just some of the guys. It's not to take away from them at all. I respect them, and I think they're really tough guys. Whenever you're against somebody that's in such great shape, with Bruno, with those skills and all that, and you're in there and you know that you've got X amount of time to put in, and man, believe me, it feels like a shooter.
They would test you. And Bruno, I had heard that there were two guys, Antonio Inoki and Bill Miller, who tested you in the ring. Could you? I know it was a long time ago, but could you talk about that? What's the term that you use? Getting cute or getting money or something in the ring? What does that mean?
I was wrestling in Japan, and you don't speak the language. You really know what the heck is going on. They get you up at 5 o'clock to get on the train at 6 o'clock. You travel by that train to Bullet. I was in a town called Osaka, and I did not find out later that the Shohei Baba was a big deal in Japan, very big deal. And Antonio Inoki, he was a big deal in Japan. You guys, I'm sure, heard of both of them. And I did not know that there was a split about to happen. At least Inoki was going to his own organization, and there was some kind of a double cross going on, but I didn't know anything about it. It was totally, So I'm wrestling, me and this guy are wrestling at the Inoki and Shohei Baba that night. And I respected Baba a lot. And they always used to, in his organization, always used to ask me to come to Japan. And every time I wrestled Baba, we always did fantastic business in Japan. So I guess the Inoki and people that he was going to be with, they felt that they had to hurt me somehow so that I wouldn't be related to Baba for the future. So this guy, Inoki, had been training a lot with Carl Gotch. So when I went in the ring in the tag match, Inoki came in and he put me in a hold that I felt right away that this guy's really trying to get me real good. Well, not bragging, but in those days, I was a 275-pound guy. I watched long. I knew a little bit about wrestling. I mean, I've been wrestling as an amateur for a number of years. And anyway, I was, like I said, I was in a pretty bad predicament because I didn't expect it. Absolutely didn't expect it. But I fought my way out of it. And after I fought my way out of it, I got him in a pretty good predicament. And believe me, he Good guy. I'll be honest with you, I was going to break his leg. I really was. And Baba came in the ring and saved that, stopped that. I found out right afterwards that he had split and started his own organization. And see, you don't know. You went in there to have a regular match, and this guy's they have a plan for you to where they're going to do you in. And so if you sometimes if you don't know a little bit of what you're doing to be able to protect yourself, it was a lot different in those days than it is right now. Believe me, it was a lot different. They had territories in those days. And if some wrestlers were unhappy with what promoters were demanding of them, they would move on to different territories. It wasn't quite like everybody thinks it is, like today, where, there's one organization, or McMahon, and or TNA now, I don't know too much about them, I know that's a separate bit, but basically it's the same group who go to the same places all the time. In our day, guys went everywhere. You wrestled for different promoters all over the place. When I was with WWF, in fact, I wrestled you in St. Louis one time. That was NWA, Sammartino. I wrestled for Paul Marsh down in Texas. I went to McGool's in Tennessee, both Memphis and Nashville, California, both North and South, with Stevens in San Francisco and Los Angeles. In those days, if you wanted to protect yourself as far as remaining a headliner, you protected yourself. And you weren't just a pussycat that just fell to the demands of any promoter. There was a lot of stuff going on.
Okay, question back over here.
Yes, gentlemen, pleasure to speak today from Atlanta here. Speaking about how things weren't how they used to be, I was curious what your take on the rise in newsletters and the openness of the business has been the last few years. I know, Bruno, recently on the ESPN Classic, they replayed with some color commentary you did with Davey the Observer Meltzer as a preliminary wrestler. What were your take on the newsletters when they came in, and has your opinion changed any as of now?
Well, they're asking about the newsletters and how open people are about the business. Ivan, you were pretty open in your book. Bruno wrote a book and decided not to be open. What's the difference between the two of you?
The reason, here's where I get offended sometimes by the business. If somebody, be honest, I've been accused of not being too honest about the business. The reason, if I'm not too honest, because I disagree, all due respect with some of the others. Talk about fake. I don't consider wrestling a fake at all. Ivan told you a while ago about the rings where we wrestled in. If you want to talk about where any of the matches the promoters pre-arranged as far as like you have to lose, you have to win, of course that goes on. I was blackballed because I refused at one period to do all that kind of stuff. But there's nothing fake about the way you destroy your body. If you go to an old-timers reunion of wrestlers, you will see a bunch of the most crippled guys you'll ever want to see anywhere. There's nothing fake about that. That's why I resent the word fake. Because what we put our bodies through, not many human beings could do. These guys today, forget about it. I don't give any credit, because when I was commentating, when I came back to you, with the McMahon thing, I went in there with no purse. I couldn't believe it. I started bouncing up and down. I literally felt like I was on a trampoline. They have springs underneath those things. They have mats this thick. In our days, like concrete. And when you took those body slams, I guarantee there ain't too many people, athletes I'm talking about, other athletes, who could take those kind of blows and keep going. Today, I'm a big football fan. I respect a lot of sports. But a guy gets a muscle here and he's on rehab for 3 weeks. I broke ribs, like he told you. You pulled ligaments. I pulled my guts up with this guy. Well, they told me you can't take off because Boston sold out. This sold out. And you had to go. You had to go and you had to perform best of your ability. So, to me it was as tough a damn business as you could possibly get into in those days. I separate it from today. I don't put them in the same class.
So I'm not trying to stir anything up, Ivan, but you've been a little bit more open about the business. Why is that? You two obviously disagree in that respect. Why do you want to be open about it? This felt time to change?
I'm not too sure what you mean that I've been more open, but I think while on the subject, you asked me a little bit about be bitter, or the idea about what's happening today as far as I'm concerned, what's really wrong, not fake, but wrong is definitely the way this product is, of course. But not only that, the disrespect for the guys that wrestled for in the past. Football players, other sports have got things set up where they give the people some retirement that end up working for them, some compensation later on. I don't look for a handout for nothing, type thing for a freebie, but it's the idea that whenever a person is making money from a product that was generated in the past that you ended up being part of, to me it's cheap. It's low class if you don't end up giving them a little piece of it. And they shouldn't have to come back and asking you for that. That should be something, whenever they show ESPN matches on that and less guys out there wrestling, no matter what territory it was in. Every time that's shown, whenever people on films or actors and that, they give royalties for that. Why is it that a guy like Vince McMahon cannot say, hey, without you have to call up and get your lawyer to call up and say, hey, you should give him some royalty? That's a bunch of junk. He's got millions and millions of dollars. You can't, those guys can't even fight it. Yeah, I'm a little bit bitter about that. To me, why should he be making millions more money off the idea of matches for before that I never even released my rights to, type of thing, just because he's got millions. So yeah, I'm a little bit bitter about that and the idea of what he's doing today to the business, to hurt the business as far as credibility.
Okay, here's a question.
Actually, this question is for both of you. Who was your worst opponent and why? And also, if you had to choose one current wrestler now to fight you in your prime, who would it be?
Who was your worst opponent and why? And who was the bad in sense of work rate or just tough to work with? Is that what you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, or somebody who may have hurt you. And also, do you know any wrestlers today who you think will be stars? No. Or who you'd like to work with? Any wrestlers of today who you would like to work with?
I feel like to answer that question, I'm a little bit disqualified because I don't watch wrestling today. And I know there's some great talent out there as far as executing moves and everything. And some of these guys are incredible, as I understand some of the stuff that do. No rhyme or reason to why they do it or anything like that. But I understand they're coming off the top rope doing double flips and onto tables and everything like that. That's incredible. Stunts that they're doing, the stuff that they're doing. But for me to be able to say which one of them I'd love to be able to work against if I was in my prime or wrestle against.
How about the toughest opponent? How about a difficult opponent?
Tough, what you mentioned, the guys that Andre the Giant, those guys that was really tough, like Danny Hodge, and I was in the ring with Frank Hodge, Vern Gagne. As far as, I think just about everybody I wrestled was a tough guy because I don't consider myself a tough guy. I say that truthfully. I was a big, strong guy that ended up being able to probably averagely stay in there with anybody. But as far as being trained in the skills of what we call hooking, breaking somebody's arms and that, I probably am average at doing stuff like that. Is that anybody else would be as skilled as I was or as strong as I am? But as far as having that technique down of hooking and hurting people, so I never really been in that situation. And thank God that they had enough respect for me that they did apply extra pressure. I could see that I even wrestled with Ken Shamrock, the guy, you know, before he became Ken Shamrock, with the local group here, Vince Troy, and man, he had respect for him. In the ring, I could tell that he was putting me this move and that move and all this stuff, but I had no problem with it at all. So, other than that, there's guys that wrestled on TV or preliminary guys that were probably not skilled very much and were really nervous. That was the biggest fight they had of all because they were afraid in there and they're afraid, I guess, not doing it right or that you get that out or something. Consequently, they're like real stiff from wiring. They're hurt and they didn't even know it.
Bruno, is it true that you were supposed to be the NWA champion?
It's actually supposed to be.
Yeah.
They were going to unify the two titles. Luthez was the NWA champion, I was the WWF champion. And they were going to unify those titles. But we were having meetings, and I never participated in any of them. Thez, I understand, participated in one or two of them. And then I found out from, remember Phil Zacco. Phil Zacco was with the WWF. And I liked him, he liked me, he was a European like I was. And one day he called me in his office, he says, "Kid," he said, "you don't know what's going on." He says, "I better give you a heads up." He said, "But don't let it know it comes from me." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, they're going to, they want to unify the titles. And what's stopping it right now is that Sam Marshnick believes the president of the National Wrestling Alliance. He feels that he needs 17 or 18 days, I forget, of the champion because to satisfy all the NWA territories. And Vince McMahon makes the argument that he needs that many days because the Northeast is the territory that's got all the big arenas there. It's true. We had more big arenas in the Northeast than the country, every place else in the country put together. So Vince McMahon felt that he needed the champion in at least all the major ones. Anyway, so Phil Zacco says to me, "I just want you to be aware that they're making a decision and they're not even involving you, including you." So then I called a meeting and I asked for Vince McMahon again, and Toots Monk was his partner. People didn't know him, but he was equal partner with Vince McMahon. And a guy named Willie Gilzenberg, who was the president of WWF, and Phil Zacco. And I asked, I said, "I'm hearing different stories, different rumors." I said, "I just want to make myself known so that you people understand where I come from and then go from there." I said, "I go home 2 days out of the month right now. Every other Saturday, I wrestle 7 days a week, 2 weeks out of the month, and 2 weeks I wrestle 6 days a week." So I said to them, I said, "That's not good enough." I said, "My wife is not happy. I have a kid now. Parents are way up there in age, and I don't see enough of them." So I said, "I don't care less who gets how many days, but 4 days a month from now on. Sundays, I want to go home. I'm going to be with my family. And as far as the remainder days, whether Sam Marshnick gets 90%, or you get, I could care less." I said, "But that's it." Well, when they found that out, now all of a sudden, I'd say on a 30-day month, there's 26 days, and 26, what, the 13 and 13 is 26, and satisfy either one of them. And Toots Monk, who was never crazy about the idea in the first place, he told Vince McMahon, he says, "The only reason why they want to unite now is because we got a big," he says, "because we are the big deal right now." WWF at the time, we had all the big arenas, we were selling out all over, they were recognizing me as a champion in Japan, in South America, and Australia. And so he said, "The heck with it, let's just keep things as they are." And that's what happened, that's why it never took place.
Okay, question here back.
Good morning, gentlemen. Greetings from the Greenville, South Carolina area. Both of you at some point have made a statement about your backgrounds in amateur wrestling. In your time coming up, what percentage of wrestlers have an amateur background? And say, cut to today, do you think that percentage is much smaller than it used to be?
In your day, did most of the the wrestlers have an amateur wrestling background?
I would say the greater majority absolutely did. At least that I knew. Most of the guys that I knew, they all had an amateur background. Yeah, there were some that did not. But the majority of them, believe me, they did. The majority absolutely did a heck of a lot more. There are some good wrestlers. I don't follow wrestling anymore because when I got fed up with it all, I just walked away. But for example, you have Kurt Angle. You know, Kurt's from Pittsburgh, so I happen to know him for years. Well, Kurt Angle, there's no question about it. You know, this guy was an Olympian, okay? And I'm sure that there are some others that I don't know of over here. But I know when I was commentating for McMahon before I had my big blow-off with him and left, I knew that most of the guys that were there at the time, none of them had really any kind of a wrestling background. They did not. In my opinion, yeah, these guys can do stuff I wouldn't even attempt. They go up on the top, buckle, they do triple somersaults and quadruple somersaults. That doesn't do anything for me because to me, I never considered that wrestling. That's acrobatics, that's not wrestling. But in the old days, maybe a lot of the guys couldn't do some of the stuff that you're seeing. But I'll guarantee you, there were a lot of tough guys, man, in those days. They would. You know what? See those guys? Look at these ears. How many of these new guys now you see with cauliflower ears and noses that have been busted in his arms and all these other things? You don't see too many, do you?
Okay, question in the back.
Bruno, that's what you see on TV, do your career on TV. You ask caller in my time, you're great, all-time wrestling. You answer is the great legend in wrestling today.
So you remember those days. I guess what he's saying, was it important for you, for the fans to appreciate you and like you and love you? Did that matter to both of you?
This is the one thing I can tell you from my heart and soul. God is my judge. People who know me, they know I used to be a fanatic in the gym to work out. And the reason why was because I never kidded myself about the realities of life. If I was a so-called star in wrestling, as I or anybody else, there's only one reason why you're a star, and that's because of people who bought the ticket to come and see you wrestle. Because without that, you're a nobody. Nobody. So, the way I tried to pay the fans back was that I always trained exceptionally hard. In fact, I had no respect, and sometimes I'd get a little busy. I hated when guys that I had to wrestle and they didn't keep themselves in real good shape, because I felt that they were cheating the public. I can honestly say with a clear conscience that never did I go in that ring. Sometimes it didn't come out. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the best always somehow doesn't come out. But I know that every time I went in there, I gave it my all because I felt it. I owe that to those fans, and that's the least I could do because it was they who made me the so-called star in wrestling. I've always believed that.
Ivan, do you miss the roar of the crowd? Do you miss performing, or do you wish you could still do some of those things?
The roar of the popcorn, the smell of the people. Yeah, definitely. It's something that you, I guess, get so used to because you've wrestled so many times and been in that situation so often that anything that you hate worse as a wrestler is the idea that you've got a crowd out there and that they're not responding, they're not enjoying what they're seeing. You know that you got to keep moving if they're starting to yell boring or something like that, you know. And, you know, years ago, a person, you know yourself, if you grab somebody in a hole, whether it's a front face lock or something, you might have to struggle for 10, 15 minutes, depending on who you put it on, to get away from that person, right? And maybe you won't even get away. So, realistically, a person watching wrestling years ago accepted that fact. Nowadays, it's a new product, so it's like they accept the fact that a guy grabbed a headlock and it's a rope and tackle, big power slam and suplex, and they're up to their feet right away. It's like non-stop action. It's entertainment today, but realistically, if you were doing that to somebody, it wouldn't happen that fast. So, but the people back then enjoyed the fact of good wrestling. They seen that if you went from a headlock and into a reversal and ended up hitting his leg and back up to the head again, they appreciated that because they seen it was some good wrestling move, contrary to the wrestling style of today. And I think that had a lot to do with going back to the amateur thing. Whether you were trained in the amateur or not, years ago it was the idea that you had some teaching of amateur training because you came up through the ranks. It was like you didn't go from being like today in the gym, maybe a few weeks of learning a few moves, just because you got 23 or 24 inch bicep and you're all pumped up on steroids that you throw in there, you're 7 foot tall, 400 pounds, that you become featured. Back in those days, it was the idea of going on the road and maybe struggling for 5 years and just getting beat up every night. You're learning the ropes. You're learning not only how to wrestle, but you're learning, even though you're trained at a wrestling school, you're learning the psychology of it. You're learning, you're picking up something because you're wrestling different guys all the time. And I think that's the difference. I mean, the idea of appreciating the fact that the people respond to something. Today they respond to the hi-fi and stuff and that because they're educated to that. But years ago, oh yeah, definitely if it became too quiet, you could tell the difference between quiet because they're really intent. All you have to do is look out there. Because they're all eyes and they're looking to see what's going to happen next. But if they're yawning or they're getting up going for a drink or something, it's because they don't like what they're watching.
Thank you for your question, Ben.
This actually plays to my question. And I was wondering, with both Bruno and Ivan, whether there was one particular pop that you guys remember of something that happened, either a particular match or something where the crowd just went absolutely berserk, and whether it was expected or unexpected. And one thing was totally memorable that people just went crazy for.
I think I know Bruno's answer, so let's...
Where the people really went bananas.
Right.
I'll tell you, for me, twice, but one was that when I found out that nobody had ever been able to pick up Haystacks Calhoun, I said that if given the opportunity, I would pick him up. And people wrote in by a ton, in fact, I cut a little heck from the promotion, who you think you are? I was a preliminary boy, I'd been in the business just a few months. And for me, I thought it would be a great feat and great publicity if I could pick this guy up. Anyway, they made the match in the garden, and I did pick him up, and when I picked him up, I swear I thought the roof of the garden was going to blow off. Those people went absolutely crazy. They couldn't believe it that they'd seen this guy up in the air like that, and that was the biggest pop I ever had. The second one was when I beat Rogers with the title. The people reacted almost like the Calvin, just about like the Calvin situation. They were the two biggest pops I ever got.
And Bruno,
see, you can't say you got that kind of a pop when you beat me.
Bruno was right there about Haystack too, because I know he didn't like to go off his feet. So he had to physically pick that man up, and that had to feet for sure.
and that is true, actually, I was going to follow up on that. Bruno, it is true that when you were back in the dressing room, Calhoun was not pleased at what had happened. I mean, none of that was planned.
No, he didn't think that nobody had ever been able to pick him up before, and he didn't think that I could. No, like I said, believe me, he was not to help you pick him up. He didn't want to be lifted up. He wanted to maintain his reputation. When he saw himself start going up, he fought it for a while, but I had a good grip on him, and he wasn't going nowhere but up.
Probably the only story that I can really remember real quick is probably happened with you in a match too, Bruno, where the rope ended up breaking. you know, when you're in the process of a match, not so much up north, because those rings are, I think, more solid, the ropes are the big old heavy twine ropes. Down here they had cables with plastic over, and a lot of times that they would break. And I can remember one situation where, and luckily it didn't happen to myself and my opponent, but unfortunately, on a tackle type thing, the rope broke, and man, what a bump, whoa, right outside. And the people were like, oh, like, you know, all in unison. It was just like the idea, like, they thought he was dead. And, he did get hurt, but he finished the match, so he's a tough guy.
Well, we've been going on for 2 hours, and I guess we could go on for a couple of hours more, but there have been a number of requests for the both of you to transport us back to 1971 and cut some promos as you all are leading up to the big match of January 18th, 1971. And I wonder if the Russian Bear could cut a promo on the Willing Living.
Well, in all honesty, at that time I'd have to have the Captain Bruno battle here to help out. But yes, it's Bruno Sammartino, this Italian from Abruzzo, Italy, 290 pounds, strong man. Yes, you Americans all look up to him because he is so strong. He is your hero. He is your champion. But after this night that I wrestled him in the gardens, it is going to be over for your champion. I'm going to take the belt away from this Bruno Sammartino, your hero, and I'm going to take it back to Moscow with me. Yes, the road to Moscow will be paved in gold. I just put it to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Russian Bear and the Koloff, and the Willing Living, Bruno Sammartino.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
You want to respond to
What do we do, David? Make a Russian accent? That was this interview. My interview was like basically, it always was. I used to say, that I was training hard, I was in great shape, I was going to go in the ring, I was going to do the best I could, and hopefully I could then go back to Russia without any kind of a belt.
Bruno's always really intent, if you remember it. The idea of sincerity, like, just cut right to the chase. He was right there. What he was confident. Like, that's what came across. The people really got into him because they believed, just look at him and they believed it. And his record spoke for himself, and he was going to do what he said he was going to do. And that's why his interviews had such great impact. I want to definitely say something real quick.
Yeah, what we wanted to do is give you each a few moments to say anything we haven't asked you about. Please go right ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I just feel led to really have this platform just to be able to say something here and thanking my Almighty God for the opportunity to be able to wrestle all these years, coming from a nobody to ending up having a platform to be able to not only excel in a business, a sport that I enjoyed since a kid, but for him to allow his grace to follow me around enough to protect me and to keep me, I'm so thankful. I thank the Father for that. I ask the Father in Jesus' name to touch everybody here today. I thank you for them. I thank you for them as fans, Father, for the sport of wrestling and for their enjoyment of it. I thank you for them and their family. I ask you to bless them physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, emotionally, and follow them and to keep them. And if any of them that don't know you, that they would accept the fact, just on my word, that it's coming from you and coming from my heart, that you are for real. You are the Almighty God, that you did send your Son to die for our sins. And He has paid the price, that you love us, no matter what we have done in the past. And you will forgive us if we just acknowledge that gift of Jesus Christ and accept it and ask for forgiveness. I thank you, my Father, in heaven, in Jesus' name. Thank you. Amen.
Well, I'm not going to follow that. But for myself, honestly, I too feel extremely lucky because, you know, I feel like how lucky can you be to be here today? Like I said, I saw so many people, 1/3 of my town was killed when they first occupied us. And again, I was lucky enough to survive. I kicked out an awful disease. I was sick 3 years in bed. And again, I was lucky enough to survive. I've traveled the world and I've seen people from my village, way up in those mountains. I ran into South America. I've seen some of them in Australia and other places. And yet I was lucky enough to be able to come to America instead of having to go where some of these other people have gone. I got to wrestle and travel the world over. I just feel like, you know, sometimes I feel like maybe I dreamt it all because I thought, how could you be in the brink of death like I was for so long and then to overcome it. And I think that this is what inspires me today because people who know me, they think it's pretty crazy at my age to still train like I do. I think it's out of fear because when you were so sick like I was for so long, you fear the thought of going back. And so you drive yourself and you push yourself because to know what it's like to be at death's door. At one point in my life, I was so big, so strong, that I felt like I could go through a stone wall. I felt like if a truck came at me, it would be the truck that would get damaged. That's how great it felt, you know, and you don't want to lose it. So that's what keeps me going. And today I'm going to be 74 years old in a month. And I feel great. So right my body's going to be out there in good shape, and I do thank Almighty God because I think that for whatever reason He saved me, if for everything that's happened in my life, I'm extremely grateful. Despite what you hear about the bitterness, you look like one happy guy. I'm very grateful.